Every Saturday, I saw him walk in, always at the same time, 10 minutes past 11. The little bell above the door would chime, and for a heartbeat, the air inside my flower shop would change. The scent of roses and lavender seemed softer, sweeter, as if they too were waiting for him. He was quiet, polite, always dressed neatly, with that kind of shy smile that never quite reached his eyes. His name was Michael. I learned that from the card he once filled out when he asked for a receipt. But we never exchanged more than a few words. "Morning," he would say. "Morning," I'd reply. And then he'd point towards the same bouquet, white lilies mixed with a single red rose, and I'd wrap it carefully, as if my fingers could protect the feelings hidden inside. At first, I didn't think much of it. People bought flowers for all sorts of reasons: birthdays, anniversaries, apologies, grief. But he came every Saturday, without fail, even when the sky cracked open with rain or snow fell so hard the roads turned white and silent. He always left with the same bouquet, walking down the street until he turned the corner and disappeared. Weeks turned into months, and I began to wait for him. I told myself I was just curious. But each Saturday, as the morning light spilled through the window and landed on the cash register, I'd find my heart tapping against my ribs, whispering, "He'll be here soon." And then the bell would chime. He always looked around the shop before his eyes met mine, like he needed to make sure the world was still the same before he saw me. And every time I'd feel my chest tighten. I started to notice little things, the way he rubbed his thumb along the edge of the counter while waiting for me to finish wrapping, the faint tremor in his voice when he said thank you. He never made conversation, never asked my name, but I could feel something in the silence between us. Like the space where a word could have been was already filled with meaning. Sometimes after he left, I'd stand by the window and watch the street until he was gone. Then I'd breathe out, realizing I'd been holding my breath the whole time. It became my favorite part of the week. Saturday wasn't Saturday without him. One afternoon, when the shop was empty, I found myself daydreaming about where he might go after buying those flowers. Maybe he placed them on someone's grave, maybe he gave them to a girlfriend, or maybe, I thought foolishly, he kept them for himself, the way I kept the memory of his smile. But that night, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept replaying the way he looked at me that morning, just a little longer than usual, his lips parting like he might say something but didn't. The next week, I decided to take a chance. I slipped a small folded note inside the bouquet before I wrapped it. Nothing dramatic, just a line that said, "If these flowers are for someone special, I hope she knows how lucky she is." I tied the ribbon tightly and handed it to him like always. He thanked me and left, unaware of the secret message resting among the petals. For the rest of the day, I was restless. My hands shook when I arranged new displays, and every sound from the bell made my heart leap. But he didn't come back. Not that day. Not the next. Just the usual customers: tourists, old couples, women buying roses for anniversaries. Saturday came again, and again, and again. And he kept coming too, same time, same bouquet. But he never said anything about the note. So I started leaving more. Little messages hidden beneath the flowers. "I like the way you smile. You make my mornings brighter. If you ever want to talk, I'm here." I thought maybe he'd reply or at least mention it. But every time he simply smiled that quiet smile and left. It was almost cruel the way hope kept me alive. Then one Saturday, he didn't come. At first, I thought maybe he was running late. I kept glancing at the clock, arranging and rearranging the same bunch of tulips just to keep my hands busy. But noon came and went. The afternoon sun started sliding through the window, and still no familiar footsteps. My heart began to ache with something sharp and hollow. The next week, I came early, brushed my hair twice, wore the blue dress I always thought he might notice. But he didn't come then either. Or the week after. He was just gone. And the shop felt different, emptier, colder. Even the flowers seemed duller somehow. I didn't tell anyone how much it hurt. It felt ridiculous missing someone I'd barely spoken to. But love doesn't ask for permission. It just arrives quietly and takes everything it wants. Mr. Green, my boss, noticed how distracted I was. He was an older man, gentle and patient, who had run the shop for 30 years. One evening, as I was locking up, he asked softly, "Sarah, is everything all right? You've been somewhere else lately." I hesitated, then told him about the boy, the one who came every Saturday for the same bouquet, and then suddenly stopped. Mr. Green listened, nodding slowly. "Do you remember his name?" "Michael," I said, my voice barely a whisper. He sighed, thoughtful. "Maybe we can find out what happened. People don't just vanish like that." Something inside me flickered. Hope. Fragile, but alive. So we tried. He called a few of the nearby shops, described Michael, asked if anyone had seen him lately. Days passed. Then one morning, Mr. Green came in with a look on his face I'll never forget. Part pity, part hesitation. He said quietly, "I found his address." My hands trembled as I took the slip of paper from him. That evening, I drove to the edge of town, where the houses were small and close together, the kind with porches that creaked under the weight of years. The air smelled like pine and rain. I parked in front of a white house with blue shutters. My heart felt like it was trying to escape my chest. A woman opened the door, a kind face, graying hair tied in a loose bun. She looked tired but gentle. "Hi," I said, trying to steady my voice. "I'm sorry to bother you, but I'm looking for Michael." For a moment her eyes widened, then softened in a way that made my stomach twist. "Are you the girl from the flower shop?" she asked quietly. My breath caught. "Yes," I said. "How did you know that?" She pressed her lips together, tears gathering in her eyes. "He told me about you," she whispered. Something inside me broke open. "Then you know where he is?" Her silence was an answer I didn't want to understand. "Please," I said, my voice cracking. "I've been looking for him for weeks. I just need to talk to him." She stepped aside, tears spilling freely now. "Honey," she said softly, "I wish you could." And then she told me. The words felt like shards of glass. There had been an accident just a few days after his last visit to the shop. A drunk driver had run a red light. He didn't make it to the hospital. For a second, everything went silent. The wind, the rain, my heartbeat, everything stopped. Then the world tilted and I felt myself falling. I don't remember hitting the ground, only the sound of a voice calling my name, the rush of air, the darkness closing in. When I woke up, I was on a couch in her living room. There was a blanket over me, the smell of chamomile in the air. She sat nearby, holding a cup of tea, her eyes red from crying. "I'm sorry," I whispered. She shook her head. "He loved coming to that shop. He told me once that the girl behind the counter had the kindest eyes he had ever seen." Tears blurred my vision. "He never said anything. He just bought the same flowers every time." She smiled weakly. "Do you want to see his room?" I nodded. Upstairs, the door creaked open, and the smell of dried petals and cologne filled the air. His room was small, neat, filled with sketches pinned to the wall, drawings of flowers mostly. On his desk sat dozens of bouquets, carefully preserved, each one wrapped exactly as I had done it. My breath caught in my throat. Every single one of them. And then I saw them. Tiny folded notes tucked inside the ribbons. My handwriting. He had kept them all, untouched, unread. The papers still crisp, sealed the way I had left them. My knees gave out and I sank to the floor, clutching one of the bouquets to my chest. He never opened them. He never saw the words. Maybe he didn't know they were there. Or maybe he did, and he was just too afraid to believe someone could care. Either way, it didn't matter now. His mother knelt beside me, her arms around my shoulders. We cried together, the way strangers sometimes do when love leaves them both behind. I don't know how long I stayed there. The sun had set by the time I stood up again. Before I left, I asked if I could take one flower with me. She nodded, smiling through her tears. I chose one white lily. Now, every Saturday, I place that lily in a vase by my window. The bell above the shop still rings, customers still come and go, but part of me stays in that moment, watching him walk through the door one last time. Sometimes I imagine what might have happened if he'd opened the notes. If he'd known, maybe we would have gone for coffee. Maybe he would have smiled differently, softer, knowing I cared. Or maybe he wouldn't have been on that road that night. But life doesn't rewrite itself for maybes. So I keep the memories instead. The bell chime, the smile, the way his hands brushed against mine when he took the flowers.